So we've just to set a perspective. September is a month of PCOS awareness. So this whole month is celebrated as PCOS awareness, and there couldn't have been a better time to talk about this, because 1 in 5 women across globe suffer from PCOS. So I thought this would be the best time to create awareness and to be able to really help people. So before we really get on to the subject, I wanted to put a doubt to rest, which is about PCOD and PCOS. So earlier, there's been a lot of confusion about PCOD and PCOS. Earlier, it was thought that there is a tad bit of difference between PCOD and PCOS. However, the founder and the president of PCOS Society India clarified and made it a lot more easier for people to understand that it is only PCOS. It isn't PCOD. It isn't a disease per se. There are a set of symptoms that people are, going through because of this syndrome. So it is just PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And we don't have a term called PCOD henceforth. So that puts this question to rest, whether do I have PCOD or PCOS? It's just PCOS, yeah? Now let's talk about PCOS, and if you have questions, start putting your questions. Once I'm done giving a little background about the syndrome, we will then start taking up the questions. So PCOS, now like I said, 1 in 5 women across the globe are suffering from PCOS. There seems to be an epidemic of PCOS as well. Now what happens in this condition is that women's hormone levels are altered, yeah? So there is there's more of male hormones, there's more of androgen, and the reproductive organ of the woman, which is the ovaries, is disturbed. Now what happens in in a normal cycle is that a woman releases an egg every month, which is when the woman ovulates, and now that gives her an opportunity to make a baby, to become pregnant, or just get the periods. Now this is as normal as this. Now what happens is, the egg is released. When the egg is mature, now this egg is inside a little sac. Now when the egg matures, the ovaries open up and they release that egg. Now if there is a sperm to fertilize that egg, the woman becomes pregnant. If there isn't a sperm to fertilize that egg, a woman gets a period cycle. Now what happens in a woman who's dealing with PCOS is that the egg never matures, and thereby the ovaries doesn't open up and release the egg, and which is why there is irregular period in PCOS. And now over a period of time, because the egg is not maturing, they just stay inside that pocket and keep drying up, which then becomes polycystic. So there are multiple cysts drying up every now and then, and which is what is called polycystic ovaries. Now one is to be to have these sacs which are dried up. Now because of that, there are multiple other things that happen. So we're going to talk about the symptoms as to what happens when this process is not happening in a woman's monthly cycle. Which first of all, there is irregular period, the ovulation isn't happening, there's weight gain, there is acne, there is facial hair, loss of scalp hair, there's dark patches in the neck area, which is called acanthosis. Now these are the issues that a woman basically deals with when it comes to PCOS. What are the reasons? Given the fact that we're seeing it 1 in 5, 1 in 3, different geography, what is the reason now? It is genetic, yes. PCOS runs in the family. If the mother has PCOS, there is a likelihood that the daughter may have it. It is also lifestyle induced and environment induced. So right now, you know, partially it is because of genetics, but I would say it's more to do with lifestyle and to do with environment. So it's a you know, it's a mixture of both. Sometime it goes unnoticed, and why does it go unnoticed? Because either the girl is shy to talk about it, you know, or the parents don't feel good in terms of taking the daughter to the doctor because of these issues. But my sincere advice is, don't hold back. If you find any of these symptoms, you know, you should take your daughter. Now, when can it happen? Anywhere from the age of 14 to 45. So typically the reproductive age of a woman. So a woman can get PCOS anytime between the age of 14 to 45. There is two kind of PCOS which we wanted to talk about. So there's main PCOS, where, you know, there's irregular periods, overweight, acne, all that we spoke about. And then there is something called lean PCOS. Now, what happens in lean PCOS is that the person is not overweight, yeah, but she may have regular periods, but she may have one or maybe few other symptoms. For example, she could have the you know, dark patches on her neck, which signifies insulin resistance. She could also have acne, facial hair, so all of these. So that's also PCOS, and that's classified as lean PCOS. Now, what causes it? Yeah, so there's this huge confusion about whether overweight causes PCOS or PCOS causes overweight. Now, this is like a vicious cycle, yeah? This is a loop in loop. But to understand, more often than not, it is the overweight which causes insulin resistance, and then it causes PCOS. Now, insulin resistance is the biggest culprit when it comes to PCOS. So I'm going to talk a bit about insulin resistance, as to what happens in insulin resistance, because you know, while you may have PCOS, and if you visit a doctor, you are either given birth control pills or you're given type 2 diabetes medication, which is nothing but insulin sensitizers, yeah. So they're trying to work on your insulin resistance. So it's important that you understand what is insulin resistance. Now, what happens is, when you eat food, the whole food eventually gets converted to glucose. So that's the eventual form in which the you know, the muscles, the liver, and the cells will uptake, you know. So now what happens is, because during PCOS there is abdominal adiposity, which means you have fat in your viscera region, in your abdomen region. Now, the moment there's glucose available, the pancreas starts releasing something called insulin, which works like a little courier, which will transport the insulin to the required places. But what happens, this fat which is sitting there in your viscera region obstruct the working of insulin, and it does not allow the insulin to go and deliver the glucose. Now, because the body, I'm sorry, just one second, there's somebody who says I'm not able to see you. Okay, is there an issue with others as well? Okay, as long as you're able to hear me, I think that will solve the purpose. Sorry, so we were talking about insulin, right? So the insulin is not able to put all the glucose back to its cells. So the the glucose is still flowing in your blood. Now, looking at that, pancreas releases more insulin, but again the fat obstructs it, and again the glucose is there. So thereby, over a period of time, you develop something called insulin resistance. Okay, now this is the main culprit. There is glucose, there is insulin, but your cells have become resistant to insulin, and thereby, when the courier boy is knocking the door, the cells are not opening up. So that is a larger problem. So we need to, deal with insulin resistance. One is to fix your PCOS. Two, also because insulin resistance in the longer run gives rise to metabolic health conditions like diabetes, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease. So you need to really guard against insulin resistance. Before we move to the dietary modification, which is obviously my forte, I would also like to talk about how is PCOS diagnosed. Yeah, so more often than not, when women, when women go to an ultrasonologist, they go through a ultrasound, and the ultrasonologist, tells them that they have PCOS. Not the right thing, because for a woman, they're through the monthly period when the estrogen and the progesterones are going high and low, there could be time when there are cysts actually are there, but it is not a sign of PCOS. And which is why there are 3 criteria to be able to identify if a girl or a woman has PCOS. So number 1 is, of course, the ultrasound. Number 2 is the clinical evidence. So for example, if a woman has a lot of facial hair or cystic acne or the dark patches in the neck and overweight, and of course clubbed with irregular periods. So now these are the clinical evidences. The third thing is a blood work. So like I said, that it's in hormonal imbalance, right? So the hormones are altered. Now what happens in that is your male hormones, androgens, are raised in the blood level as well. So testosterone are high. So what we do is we basically look at the ultrasound, we look at the clinical evidence, and we look at the blood report. Now out of the 3, if 2 are suggesting that there is PCOS, then it's a clear case of PCOS. Yeah, so that's how it's diagnosed. Just don't go by only by a ultrasonography which says that you could have PCOS. Please look at clinical evidences and the the blood work. Now that's on the diagnosis part. Now coming to the treatment, obviously even if you go to a doctor, the doctor says lose weight. Why do they say so? When they say lose weight, they actually say lose fat. When you drop your body fat, let's say by 10 to 12% as well, your periods become regular, your symptom of PCOS become regular, because it has to do with fat and with insulin resistance. So, and how do we deal with this? We deal with it with the dietary modifications. We deal with it by our lifestyle and our workout. Now, when it comes to PCOS, people say don't have carbs, don't have this. No, you definitely need carbs more than ever. You need them in the form of whole grains. You need them in the form of complex carbohydrates. So what you need to look at is your portion size. Now your portion size are very important when it comes to PCOS, because we're looking at fat loss. Now this is simple science, okay? Now when you've been asked to lose weight or you've been asked to lose fat, it is typically your basal metabolic rate, which is the number of your calories that the body needs at the time of resting. If, let's say, if that's 1200, yeah? So if you're eating a diet plan which is 1400, obviously there is no way that you're going to lose fat. So you need to work on your portions and make sure that the calories come down to, let's say, about 1050 or 1100. So there's a deficit. You definitely need to create that calorie deficit. The other thing that you need to do is to work out and burn another 200-300 calories with your workout, and thereby creating a deficit. Now, if you continue this process, you're going to lose weight, you're going to lose fat, and thereby correct the condition. Now, coming to few particular kind of foods that we need to work on. When you're dealing with PCOS, you need to make sure that you're eating low glycemic index food. Now, why low glycemic index? Because we spoke about insulin resistance, right? We're dealing with something called insulin resistance, and we don't want sugar, spiking and crashing down. We need our sugar levels to be stable throughout the day. So when you eat a food which is low in glycemic index, it does not spike your sugar. So there's always a stability in your blood sugar level, which is why the whole grains, the complex carbohydrates is what we talk about. Now also, we talk about something called glycemic load. Now glycemic load is different from glycemic index. Each food item has a glycemic index depending on the complexity of the carbohydrates in that particular food item. But more often than not, what people understand is because it's low in glycemic index or because it falls under the category of health food, they tend to have a lot of it. Now that's where it spoils your glycemic load. So what we're saying is essentially small portions of junk or unhealthy food or large portion of healthy food is actually equivalent when it comes to correcting a condition like PCOS. So you need to make sure that you're eating low glycemic index food, but again in small portions. You need to make sure that you're eating small frequent meals. Why small frequent meals? Let's say if you're eating every 2 hours and you're eating, let's say, a fruit now, some nuts and seeds after a couple of hours, and then a small meal, and then an evening snack. So your sugar levels are maintained and there is no spike. Please understand that maintaining a stable sugar level is the key here. Yeah, and obviously goes without saying that you're not going to be eating sweet and fried. It is only going to spoil the situation. Now coming to exercise. Exercise is very important because you're looking at fat loss. Now when we say fat loss, we look at cardio. Cardio is the best way for fat loss because it increases your heartbeat. Now let's look at cardio. What kind of exercises you can include? A brisk walk, a swim, a jog, cycling, anything, and then club it with some amount of strength training. So we're saying about 70% of cardio and 30% of strength training. But in the case of lean PCOS, where the woman is not overweight, where the woman is having regular periods, then we need to look at more of strength training because muscle also uptakes our insulin. So that's what we need to really keep in mind when it comes to PCOS. Now let's open the forum for questions. Whatever question people may have, and I would take up those questions. Okay. All right, so we have a question on infertility. Can I conceive if I have PCOS? Well, yes, you can conceive. It's not that it's impossible, but if you're not ovulating, you cannot conceive. So let's look at, one of the main symptoms of PCOS, which is irregular period, which means the woman is not ovulating. So when you're not ovulating, you cannot conceive, number one. Number two, if you have irregular period, let's say you get your periods once in 3 months. So your likelihood of getting pregnant is that much lesser. So a normal woman who ovulates or who gets her periods every month has 12 opportunities to get pregnant in a year, whereas a woman who has period once in 3 months has that much lesser opportunity to get pregnant. How do we go about it? Again, so the first course of treatment is lifestyle. Even the doctors are now talking only about lifestyle before they look at insulin sensitizers or birth control pills for a woman to conceive. Like I said, if you reduce your fat percentage, if you reduce your body fat by 10 to 12%, so let's say today you are 80 kilos, I'm just taking a hypothetical number. If you are 80 kgs and you come down to 70 or 68, your likelihood of regularizing your period is that much higher and you will be able to conceive. Yeah, we have a question where, okay. So with diet and exercise control, are medications mandatory if there is PCOS? Well, there are certain cases where we're saying it could be a very strong gene of PCOS, so and it's a lean PCOS where the androgens are high and it's a very strong gene, then doctors may look at insulin sensitizer for some time. It'll be very case specific, but more often than not, I would say about 85 to 90% women are able to manage PCOS, reverse PCOS with lifestyle modification. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Can you tell us about your weight loss? Okay, Raj, we would connect on a different forum. This is not really about weight loss program. So I want to cover PCOS today. Weight loss, like I said earlier in my videos, a wholesome meal, short frequent meals, eating the right food at the right time is what will help you. But if you need any other, detail, connect with me offline, not on this video. Okay. I'm ovulating and proper cycle, but still not conceiving. And yes, I have PCOS. All right. If you're ovulating and if you have your, period, proper cycles, I am very unsure if it can really be classified as PCOS, because this does not even fall under lean PCOS. What you could possibly have, Swati, is hyperprolactinemia. So now what happens is that there are women who have prolactin levels high. Now this is another hormone that women have. If there is hyperprolactinemia, which is, your prolactin levels are high, you could be facing this problem. You may not be a PCOS, but you may have prolactin levels high. I would suggest please go ahead and get your prolactin levels checked once, there is a treatment for prolactin levels. Once your prolactin levels are, rectified, you should be able to conceive if your cycles are regular. Hope that answers your question. Does apple cider vinegar help in PCOS? Apple cider vinegar, or what else? Lemon water, ginger water, any magical water that you can think of. Nothing is going to help you in isolation when it comes to weight loss or when it comes to PCOS. Yeah, it is always a holistic approach which talks about fat loss. Now, what does apple cider vinegar have to be able to help you with, PCOS? PCOS is a hormonal imbalance. It's your hormones which have gone topsy-turvy. So apple cider vinegar can really not work as a treatment or a medication, neither for PCOS nor for weight loss. It can only help to some bit with your digestive tract, with your digestion. That's all that it can do. Even when people talk about apple cider vinegar for weight loss, no, it doesn't work. It's not a magical food. Yeah? All right. Okay, while we're on this topic and we're, waiting for some more questions, I would also want to talk about the kind of grains one should be looking at. And a very important thing which I missed, was dairy. So one is the grain. Now, don't rely on only wheat. Just get a little versatile when it comes to your grain. So add ragi, which is also known as nachni, add bajra, add jowar. Then you have barley, you have, various kind of millets, which are also regional specific. So now what that does is it gives you a lot of fiber, it gives you a lot of satiety and a lot of calcium, because when you're dealing with PCOS, you need a lot of calcium. Yeah. So make sure that you're getting versatile when it comes to your whole grains. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and it got missed, is dairy. Now, there is one school of thought which says that you should not be having dairy at all if you have hormonal imbalance or if you have PCOS, and there is one school of thought which says you must have a supply of continuous dairy because you need calcium and protein. Now, dairy, if you understand, milk, the cow has some antigens, which is basically meant for the calf and for the cow and not for human beings. So let's say a moderate amount of dairy, about 300 ml dairy in a day is acceptable from that perspective. But the fact that there is hormones being injected into the cows, it can then be an issue now. So you need to make sure, if you have PCOS, that you get access to hormone-free milk, because we don't want, that there is already a hormonal imbalance and we get some artificial hormones which have been injected into the cow for more milk supply to create further issues. So make sure that you're getting, your supply of milk from a hormone-free cow milk. If you don't have access to it, you can look at other options. Now, there are various options when it comes to, your calcium and protein. You could look at barley, which is 21 times more higher in calcium. So barley is a good option to recover your calcium intake. Sesame seeds is a good option when you're looking at calcium. Green leafy vegetables are a good option. Coming to your protein, if you're a vegetarian, then look at your legumes, beans, pulses. If you're a non-vegetarian, then look at meat, eggs, poultry, everything. So my point is, take an individual call. If you have access to good source of dairy, go ahead and include dairy. Also see, so do an experiment with yourself. Have dairy for 2 weeks and see how the body behaves, and then stop it for 2 weeks and see the kind of changes you experience. And trust me, you will be able to decide it for yourself. Yeah, so let's not go with a blanket rule saying dairy is bad or dairy should be avoided. Let's do an experiment. Let's figure out how it works, and you'll be able to decide for yourself. Now, somebody says, I exercise and have a decent diet and still my cycles are weird. Sometimes I'll just have stains, and sometimes it's just clots, and sometimes it's normal. Okay, now, yeah, so that's a hormonal imbalance, and that's what gets classified in lean PCOS. These, scanty periods or heavy bleeding or, just stains like you mentioned, could be that your body still has insulin resistance, which means that you may not be overweight, but your fat percentage is high. Now, when we talk about fat, we look at about 18 to 19% for young girls from the age of 14 to 18 age group. And beyond 18, we look at a fat percentage of 22 to 23%. So please get your fat percentage checked and work towards reducing fat. So when it comes to PCOS, like I said earlier, we're not only looking at weight loss, we're looking at fat loss, because we need to break something called insulin resistance. And that will only happen when you're losing fat. If by any chance you're losing your muscles, the insulin resistance is only going to get more aggravated. It's going to irritate your hormones and cycles even further. So make sure that, you check your fat percentage and work on losing fat. Your problem will definitely be sorted once the fat percentage goes down. Okay, what about Tetra Pak milk? Same problem? Well, yes. Okay, again, different school of thoughts. Okay, now, region specific, we have various brands. Some brands are adding adulterants to be able to, meet their milk supply, because India as a country has been thriving on dairy, and thereby the demand is also more. So there are adulterants that are being added, but you also have access to organic milk these days. So that is something that is very area specific. Locally, you'll have to kind of find out what's the best option. Tetra Pak, if you're asking from a shelf life perspective, it is safe from shelf life perspective, because it's pasteurized at a very, very high temperature, and thereby it increases the shelf life. So if your question is to do with shelf life, it's fine. But if it's if your question is to do with adulterants, you'll have to figure out which brand are we talking about, what kind of symptoms are you getting. Yeah. Is A2 milk any better? Yes, A2 milk is better, goes without saying. Now, for people who may not know what is A1 and A2, A1 is the Jersey cow, which is also known as hybrid, and then A2 is your Desi cow. So the Desi milk is obviously better, yeah. But again, so the disclaimer is A2 milk is better when the cow is grass-fed and not hormones injected. So make sure that, you know, so there are also lab tests. In fact, you know, few of my friends actually did this, you know, lab test from the place where they were taking milk. They, you know, they got the milk tested and they kind of realized that the milk was hormone free. So you may want to just form a group, you know, for all the people who are taking milk and just get this test done. This should clarify your confusion once and for all. Okay, now somebody says, I have milk secretion for last 14 years. My son is 14 years. I have a small size swelling developed near the pituitary. I try not to have milk, but then my calcium is decreasing. Also, I take tea with normal A2 milk. Now, okay, now this is a question which is talking about different hormones, yeah? So if your son is 14 years and you still have milk secretion, your prolactin levels are all over the place. So please get your prolactin level checked and meet a gynac to, you know, fix your prolactin levels. Like I said, if your calcium levels are decreasing, milk is not the only option. So first of all, whether you take milk or you don't take milk, it is not really related to the milk secretion. Even if you don't take milk, if there is a, you know, prolactin level imbalance, your body will still secrete milk. So the two are not related. Number two, if you want to avoid milk for certain reason and still are concerned about calcium, then look at barley seeds, look at sesame seeds, look at leafy vegetables, look at whole grains, and you will be able to get your calcium supply. Yeah, tea with normal milk is absolutely fine. How to take barley water? All right. So there are a couple of ways that people try and take barley water. The one that I always say is soak it overnight. Boil it the following morning and just filter it and have that water. Alternatively, if you're hard pressed for time, you could boil this water in the night and leave it alone. In the morning, just heat it up to a temperature where you would like to drink and just filter that water and have that water. Yeah, and please don't waste that barley. That barley is as tasty as your rice, so you could just have that barley by making an upma of it, or maybe using it as rice in your lunch. Dairy to be avoided for PCOS or in general. Okay, this is a very, very tricky one. Now, again, like I said, there are two schools of thoughts. Okay, as Indians, we've grown up with dairy, and I don't see any reason for you to be avoiding dairy if it's not adulterated. Yeah, dairy, like we say, milk is a complete meal. It has your vitamin A, D, you know, it has your fat, protein, carbs, everything. So if you have your hands on good dairy, please go ahead and use dairy. Dairy is only to be avoided if you are lactose intolerant. Now, these are the fads, and you know, I always end up talking about these fads in all my lives or videos because some question or the other comes. See, avoiding milk is only a must when you have something called lactose intolerance. Yeah. Because your body is not able to produce the enzyme which it is supposed to be able to digest your dairy. So that's obviously a time when you're not supposed to have dairy. I don't see any other reason. If you're getting your hands on good dairy, go ahead and use dairy as part of your daily life. And something similar to the gluten thing as well. People start avoiding wheat thinking it's going to help them. If you have celiac, avoid wheat. Otherwise, don't avoid wheat. We've grown up eating wheat. We've grown up eating our, you know, roti, bread, pasta, everything. So make sure that you're going a little versatile, especially when it comes to PCOS. So add a little more grains to it. You could add nachni, you could add ragi, jowar, bajra, all of that. But you don't need to avoid wheat. Okay. Can we substitute fruits with grain breakfast? If yes, how much will be sufficient? Okay. Now, this is a very interesting question because we're talking about PCOS. Okay. Fructose, dextrose, glucose, everything is a form of sugar. Now, what happens is when you're having fruits, again, there's going to be a sugar spike. Yes, it is fruit, it is natural sugar, but again, there's going to be a sugar spike, and which is what we're trying to avoid in PCOS. Please understand, we're dealing with insulin resistance. So if you're dealing with insulin resistance and you're supplying more glucose, it's going to defeat the whole purpose. So a couple of fruits as short snacks through the day is okay, but you can't have fruits as a meal. You need to have a complex meal. So when I say a complex meal, I mean a portion of carbs, a whole, like a whole grain or complex carb, which could be, your poha with vegetables, your upma, your idli with sambar, something which is, whole grain and not processed. With that, you need to have carbs. So you could either look at curd, you could look at egg whites, you could look at a piece of chicken, some kind of bean. So you need to make sure that you're having a wholesome meal. Fruits as a meal when you're dealing with PCOS is not a good idea. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Sufficiency in terms of fruit, about 2 fruits or maybe 3 fruits a day at the max, but divide it through the day. Don't have them all together. 1 serving of fruit is about 100 grams. So let's say an orange between lunch and breakfast, or an apple, one sometime in the evening, early evening. A banana could be a good option if you have PCOS, so somewhere around early evening, you could have a banana. Apart from that, if you have a hunger pang, look at nuts and seeds, because nuts and seeds are a much better option than a fruit when it comes to PCOS, because they have essential fatty acids, which is something that you really need to be able to work on your insulin resistance. So look at those and don't look at fruits as an option for your meal. Yeah. Foods to be avoided in PCOS. Okay, foods to be avoided in PCOS, anything which is processed. Let's say your noodles, your pastas, your cocktails, your mocktails, anything that's a pure source of sugar. So learn to read your nutrition labels. I'm going to talk about again, the sugar sources in my next video, so you can refer to that. Also, anything which is overcooked. So for example, a dal which has been boiled and boiled and boiled over and over again. So this is something that you definitely need to avoid. In PCOS, we always advise, we're not saying it's a thumb rule, but we're saying that as much as you can have, go ahead and have fresh food. Also avoid using microwave if you're dealing with PCOS. Apart from food, it is very, very important to totally ban plastic if you're dealing with PCOS or thyroid. Very, very important, be it grade 5 or the best in class, doesn't do any good. So avoid plastic totally if you're dealing with hormonal imbalance like PCOS or thyroid, and make sure that you're avoiding everything which is processed, which is boiled or overcooked or reheated too many times. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Do we need to soak nuts before eating? Yes, it's always a good idea to soak your nuts before eating, for a simple reason that we also have something called tannin or phytonutrients in all our nuts. Now, when we soak them, we're able to, get rid of those tannins and those phytonutrients, and thereby the nutrients of the nuts are much better absorbed in our body. So it's always a good idea to soak your nuts. Yeah. Do we have any more questions? Or I just wanted to talk about the mind and body connection before, we wait for last couple of questions. Now, PCOS leaves a girl or a woman very, very frustrated because of the set of symptoms that they're dealing with. Yeah, so they're typically dealing with you know, hirsutism, which is facial hair on the chin region or the cheek region. They're having a lot of cystic acne. So one, you know, it causes an issue in terms of, you know, your looks. Also, the hormonal imbalance, you know, the fact that your hormones have gone topsy-turvy also causes depression, and your sleep is disturbed. So the moment you start seeing these symptoms, you know, from facial hair to acne clubbed with irregular periods, or you know, overweight, it's time that you start working on yourself. So like we said, we talked about food, we talked about exercise. What we also need to make sure is that we're doing, you know, we're spending some time on ourselves, and we're making sure that self-care is something that we're working on to keep yourself happy. Because the moment you're happy, your hormones become vibrant. You become a vibrant hormone woman, and thereby half of the battle is won right there. So please make sure that, you know, you're working on yourself. Yes, it can be depressing at times. It can take time, but you will get there. So don't allow this hormonal game to take over the better of you. Okay, we just up for next 2 more questions, and this one is, are soaked raisins helpful for improving hemoglobin? Yes, so raisins in general are a good source of iron, and hence it does work to help increase your hemoglobin, gives you good fiber, gives you good vitamins and minerals. So yes, soaked raisins are a good option. If you're only looking at hemoglobin, you can also look at dates. You can also look at something called garden cress seed or the flax seed. I'm going to talk about it in the next video, so watch out for that next video. For now, yes, soaked raisins are a good option. All my hormone reports are fine, ultrasound also normal, but I'm facing cystic acne and hair fall. What can I do for that? My weight is at 55 kg high. Okay. I may not want to take up the, you know, very individual height and weight in this video, but if you're saying that your reports are normal and your cycles are normal, but you're facing cystic acne, you may want to just look at the intake. Yeah, are you dehydrated? Are you drinking enough water? Is there enough selenium, zinc and chromium in your diet? Make sure that you're getting enough dosage of selenium, zinc and chromium in your diet. Are you taking antioxidant? Is there alcohol in your diet? Is there processed food in your diet? Is your sleep pattern regular? Look at all those things. If you are answering even 3 of these as no, then once you fix that, your problem will be fixed. Yeah. I have a note, you know, I have a post on hair fall which talks about hair fall as, you know, as a standalone thing, which is, you know, which is a condition where you may not have a hormonal imbalance, but you're losing hair. Please go ahead and read that. Also, you may just want to check on your androgens. You may just want to check your testosterone levels once. Yeah, I hope that answers your questions. So I'm going to wind up with that question. I hope I've been able to create awareness of PCOS and have been able to help people to deal with it. If you have any more questions, you can get in touch with me. Also remember, PCOS is not a disease, it's just a set of symptoms. By you know, working on your lifestyle, on your food pattern, you can definitely reverse it. Your cycles will become regular, you'll be able to conceive, you'll be able to lose weight. And yes, please don't believe this myth that because you have PCOS, you cannot lose weight. You definitely can lose weight, and once you lose weight, you can also correct your condition. Yeah. Thank you. Watch this space till we go live again. Take care. Bye-bye.